Let's see. Hey, Mr. Jackson. I don't know if we're live. I don't know if I can. I think everybody can hear me because I can go test 1, 2. Yeah, that should be it. And welcome aboard. Is this thumbnail available anywhere? I don't know what they're doing. Well, hey, Glenn, that must mean you can hear me. I don't know. So I'm trying to. Someone just say, okay. So KJ7 says, hey. So it must mean everybody can hear me. Just confirm that I'm loud and clear. Because again, I got to go off that meter. Thank you, Jax. Oh, buddy. And East Phoenix. Well, here's West. So I'm far to the west end. Jax, you can't be doing that. I let you be in here to be a good dog, so you gotta stay good. All right. Yeah, Jackson's my technical advisor for today. Okay, so it's working good. We'll let it spool up for a minute as we're sitting here. One man, one dog. Does it look good, Jax? Does it all look good? Should be good to go. All right. So it's Happy Friday. Finally Friday. And we kind of got there. And we got everything set up. The mountains you love are east. Yeah, they are east of where I'm at. So there you go. So, and where are we at on weather today? So I usually do that weather report. And it is only 103 today. And it's pretty dry out, 25% humidity. So it's actually pretty good. And we got a kind of a mild weekend. Doesn't heat up really good till next week. So we're good to go. So it's kind of nice. Kind of nice this week. And I don't know if everybody else's week went by pretty quick, but mine did. It is going to be problematic because the dog's going to want to look out the blinds the whole time. Jax, you're causing problems with lighting. You just come here and you sit down. He's a silent one, though. He's the silent one. So it's been a while since he's been on camera, been hanging around. Yeah, the monsoon. We're supposed to get a tropical system coming in this next week or so, but I'm not going to hold my breath for any rain. It's just going to be what it is. We got about another 6-8 weeks of heat before we get there. Good afternoon. So everybody joining in, and here we are. I was hoping to have a couple of updates, and one thing I will say is I will note is the Rendezvous, November 3rd, 4th, and 5th out at the Don's Camp, Superstition Mountains, and we will be meeting there. Gates open at noon. If you've heard this, that means you're welcome to come out because everybody's welcome. Hey, Gil Gold Prospecting, every day is a golden day with mountain trout. What's for supper? I do not know. I have no idea what's coming up for dinner tonight. It used to be pizza, and then it wasn't anymore. And I don't smell anything, and I didn't see anything cooking. It's been a tough summer to work in. And people say, hey, they want to be there. Yeah, come out to the Rendezvous. Good guest speakers. Looks like we got a good list. I was going to make a confirmation of another one today. But again, I'll hold off another week or so before I start confirming the guest speakers. But yeah, the Rendezvous, 3rd, 4th, and 5th of November. So that'd be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Come on out. There are bathrooms for the men and women. There is no water or electricity. So you're welcome to come out and camp, stay with us, but just kind of fend for yourself up there. Plenty of areas to camp, pitch a tent, and do stuff like that. The only big rules we have is mainly if you bring horses, and I don't even know if we've had horses once or twice, but keep the horses in the upper lot area on the upper camp, so we don't bring in the flies and all that stuff down in the lower camp. Hi from New Jersey. Wish I could make it. We could. I mean, you could start walking now. It'd take you a while, but you could make it. So, but yeah, the Rendezvous, and right now it looks like we have 3 to 4 guest speakers. if there's someone interested, has some piece of information, something they'd like to share, 15, 20 minutes or so, we're always open to kind of giving it public discussion. So if I don't pet the dog, he's going to sit there in the blinds and stare out. So there you go. Yeah, I guess that is what it is, and we'll live with it for today. So that's the rendezvous. I will mention in brief, I don't have the exact date and availability of when and where and how it will be, but our good friend Jack Sanfelice has another book coming out. It's at the printers, and I was trying to call Jack and talk to Jack today so I could get the title, availability, where it would be available to everyone, and what we're looking price point and everything else, and kind of get some word out there for Jack. But it should be coming soon because I believe it's at the printers. So we'll have that coming up to talk about, and that will be cool to see what Jack has next to say. Hello, good afternoon. The engineer that worked in Baghdad, Central Arizona, back in the day when the mines went to your spiral staircase in the 70s. Engineer back in the day in the 70s. Would that be Paul Zellner? I know Paul Zellner. I don't know if he was an engineer. Miller, last name Miller. I don't know a Miller. I know there was Andy Sinbad was out there. And I know there was a couple other guys involved with Paul, and I don't have their names offhand or know them. I know a number of people. Yeah, I just don't catch a Miller. Maybe it'll ring a bell as I'm thinking and we're talking. Can't wait for the rendezvous. It should be the last four of us, at least four of us coming so far. Well, the more the merrier. It's always good. Hey, the real Batman. So there you go. Can't beat that. Speaking of that, I can't wait for the second. What is the next Batman? The Batman, that Batman. The one that I did not look forward to. Thought, well, this is going to be the worst of a Batman movie, and it turned out to be the best. It was a pretty awesome film, The Batman. And if you haven't seen it, and you kind of like the whole, like I was, like, oh, it's the guy from Twilight and stuff. Nah, it was a good movie. That was a good film. Anyhow, so this week went through. I ended up talking with Shoes and Greg Davis, Frank, of course, Mr. Mekakatezini, who's not here because he's probably still working because I work him like a dog at times. But I'm trying to think of who else I called. I talked to Ron Feldman briefly a bit this week, and I'm trying to think if that was it. It's kind of a little bit of a quieter week, but a lot of talking with Greg and stuff, going through stuff. Picked up a few books, stuff I own, but this one here, I don't know if there's a lot of copies of this book. It was In Search of the Heart, Deciphering the Peralta Stones. It's a signed copy there. I think most of them were signed, but it was a book put out by Phil Reinhardt and Rick Gwynn on their Stone Maps Theories. I don't think there was a ton of them. I own a couple or so. And then I saw one sitting on a shelf, and I decided to pick it up. Maybe it'd be something I can raffle off. Be kind of a nice deal. Then I picked up, this one was a nice one. It was the Barney Bernard Lost Up Mine, which is one of the things I remember seeing as a kid. Someone had one. It was a big deal. I don't know which edition. It's not though. There's so many different editions, and they have different stuff. This one doesn't have the Al Morrow pictures and stuff in it like one of the other ones I have. And I'm not sure which one's which or which one's best. I know the other one I have has the Al Morrow and some other stuff extended in it. I thought this one would, but it didn't. This book, which I'd had around before, but Harry G. Black, The Lost Dutchman Mine, a short story of a tall tale. And I always thought it was going to be a bit of a joke book. And if you do see a copy of this laying around, pick it up. I've actually found it's actually kind of a fun book to read. It's a nice little adventure story tale. And I was surprised. Kind of actually mentioned it to Greg Davis. He had met Harry, and he said he was a good guy and really enjoyed talking with him. And I told him how I was pleasantly surprised. I always thought it was going to be not a great book, but I guess he was a college professor or something, so he could write and It's well written. It's a nice little tale of their adventure in the Superstitions. I think he comes out of, I'm gonna say Indiana. So, but nice little book if you run out there and catch them. I always try to pick up the little oddballs that I see out and pick up. Always make sure I have 2 or 3 copies, and then here and there there'll be someone across my path that's looking for something, and I'll put one out. Of course, still available. Ron Feldman's autobiography, Jesse Feldman's Jacob's Trail, and I'm trying to think. I don't think Thomas Glover's third book um, is actually in print at all, and I don't think it's available anywhere. But there is a third book, and kind of goes with it's unraveling. It's called Unraveling the Mystery, but it kind of went with Twice Told Tales and then the original Golden Dream. So those are out there. But again, Jack Sanfelice be coming out with a new book, so that'll be very cool. So good for Jack. And like I said, I really tried and was hoping Jack would feed back to me so I'd be able to give you the information if it would be available at Amazon or Barnes and Noble, where you could order it, pre-order it, anything else, because I'm sure their first run will be a limited number of copies. See what kind of deal or what Jack was doing with it. And Jack hasn't got back to me. I don't think Jack really plays on the internet or anything much. So we'll see how it goes and where that goes and everything there. But that was kind of the week. It was kind of a quiet week. It was a bit of a quiet week. There was always research stuff going on, but it's been kind of like it's that time in the summer. Not many people, I did talk. Oh, I did talk to. I know his last name's Adams, but Derek Papsky. I don't know if Derek's in here, but I don't know if he ever comes on the videos. He'll get a kick out of here. But I know I talked to them. But that might have been before Monday. I don't know. It kind of blurs together after a while talking to everybody. So had a lot of good conversations. That might have been last Sunday with Derek and his buddy, and then I talked to Frank, and of course I always talk to Frank. So Frank and I always have good conversations. Frank's well. He was last I talked to him. He was walking, so he's taking his stroll, but he was doing well, and he thinks of all of you. Well, at least I'll say that, so to make everyone feel good. Do you tread lightly when discussing the stone maps so you don't offend old friends? Most everybody in the stone maps knows how I feel. I will listen to their theories. I will talk to them. I'll tell them my opinion. I really don't care what they think or they believe. Rick Gwynn was a firm believer in the stone maps. I would sit and talk with Rick for hours, and he would talk about the stone maps and stuff. And I didn't have a problem with it. I know Phil Reinhardt does. I've talked to Phil. Bob Schuss does. I've talked to Bob. Frank says he doesn't, and then will talk to me endlessly about it. So I don't have any issue with people that are into the stone maps. The only time it really got rough for me was a guy named Brad Cooper. And Brad and I were on the phone one day, and I swear to you, I kid you not, I think for 2 or 3 hours, he gave me this in-depth history on the stone maps. And I don't think Brad took a breath the entire time. And it never ended. And I finally had to tell him, I don't even know how much of this I'm retaining, Brad. And that one was tough. And but he was a good guy. He was well spoken, and he's allowed to have his opinion. So I'm friends with a ton of stone map people, and they're all good friends. And I don't have a problem. I don't think any of them have a problem how I feel. Like I said, man, if you're my friend and you think you got something, I'll go out with you. I'll check it out. I'll look at it. If I'm snickering or smiling, so be it. Leave me alone. But I'm not going to dig as hard as some other places. But no, I have no problem with friends and people. We've had guest speakers at the Rendezvous, and I understand that's just part of a certain part of the culture. It's not as much as you would think. They're just the more vocal of the culture. So they all have, if I put 400 stone map guys in a room, there's going to be 400 theories in 400 different places. And I can pretty much guarantee that. Rarely, they rarely ever agree on anything. So, but no problem with that. Talking to that, and I don't tread lightly. I've done the videos. We've done the Chasing Legends on what I think of Tomlinson and the Stone Maps and so forth. And my point is, I don't get offended if you tell me your theory and opinion. And if I tell you I don't really believe in them, which I did right in the very beginning of the show, the very first episode, I say these are fake. So, don't get offended. Just kind of do your thing. So, a show about Central Arizona found Condo's winter home. I don't know what that's about. What current trail was Barks Monumented Trail, and where did it run out? I always felt the Monumented Trail, I think he talked about going up through horse country and stuff. I don't know about anybody else when you're kind of reading Barks' notes. I always get that there's different places he's talking of at the same time. I know they were very interested in Bluff Springs Mountain. I know they were very interested in up into LaBarge and Boulder. And I know they were very interested in Horse Mesa. And you can all take all of those and kind of stick them in there one after the other and find that. I always think the Monumented Trail he was speaking of to some degree was one that John Burbridge talked about. John Burbridge, actually, I can't get to it, but he did a great little booklet, Lost Monuments and Mines and Monuments or something like that. And the pictures aren't great, but Burbridge found a lot of things he felt went back to the Peraltas. He found most of these and photographed a lot of this stuff, I believe, in the 40s. And a lot of that stuff's disappeared, but he felt those were markers possibly from the Peraltas or Mexican or Spanish miners. And he really was a go-getter out in the mountains. He bushwhacked. He was off the beaten path. He was out there originally, I think, with Barry Storm, and then had a kind of a difference of opinion of things. So I've always felt that followed, and that kind of followed around Bluff Springs Mountain and a lot of that area. If you get a chance and pick that up, maybe I'll check on whether or not we can do that. That would be actually a good one to actually take. I do know I have a digital copy. Someone gave me a really good digital copy, and maybe we can put that up on the website so people can become more familiar with it, because it's not a long book or big book, but it's very cool what he found and what his thoughts were in short order. So I think that follows with Burbridge. But there's so many old trails. And the funny thing is, sometimes because of how game trails work, people start using game trails and games start using some people trails. And sometimes it's too hard for me to separate one from the other unless there's markers. I really believe most of the older markers are kind of missing now. And what we find a lot of are stuff that's been put up in the last 50 to 80 years. Thanks, Wayne. I saw you, Terry Carter, at the Dons. Cool. Yeah, Terry's a cool dude, man. That's someone I called and I haven't heard back from. I know they have that big thing going on. I think it's this month, isn't it? They got something going up on Utah, big treasure hunting thing. I never get to make it. I know Sal goes up, I'm pretty sure. But anyways, Terry does that. Terry's an awesome dude, man. I like Terry. So he's definitely good people and cool people. And I try to always kind of follow what he's doing stuff. I don't see people as competition. It's like I talk quite a bit with Larry Hedrick, and people are always surprised. And I'm like, Larry doesn't run a video channel or anything like that. Larry just talks for someone and stuff. And as far as I know, I don't think Larry gets paid. But, I'd pay you, Larry. I'd make sure you get something for your troubles. But I don't do things that way. But anyways, Larry's a good guy, and I like talking on the phone with Larry. He just had a birthday, so happy birthday, Larry. But Larry's good people too, man. Larry's always fun. He's very smart, very articulate, and always wish him well. So most everybody, I just try to get along with people, and that was something I always discuss with a lot of these guys. They go, we always like to think of you as a good person and stuff. Thank you, but I always just like to get along with everybody. I like to have good conversations, and I like us to get to a relationship where we can tease or joke with each other, kind of make fun of the situations a bit too. So, because that's always funny, because it's more fun when I'm sitting there. If I'm sitting there with Clay and we're kind of both kind of poking and joking and stuff. That's a lot more fun conversation and goes in a lot better places than if we keep it too serious. Because let's face it, neither one of us seems to have found it. So it's in clay. I got a few more years to go before I can catch anywhere up to clay, but it's good, and you have to recognize kind of the irony in it all. So there you go. Why did Ron Feldman say he made maybe the last to get a treasure trove permit? Because what he had to go through, it was absolutely excruciating and agonizing. And I think they told him this is the last, no one else. It cost Ron dearly. It was very expensive. That was the early 2000s for the heat dig. It's in his books. I think also Zigzag Canyon has a section on it. I think Jesse covers some of it, the Rogers Trough area, and then they had to restore everything. It was a very, very costly thing. He had to have not only, believe Ron had to have not only his own archaeologist on the site, but he had to pay for one for the Forestry Service. So he had to have someone that watched his guy too. It was very, very expensive, and all the guys that pushed into that, I know it was Ron and Jesse and Josh, obviously, and Shoes was involved in that. Mick McPherson was involved with that. I know Jack Sanfelice was out. I don't know if he was involved or just kind of Jack was hanging out, probably eating and hanging. Chewy was filming that. Yeah, they never did anything with the film. They had a film. I never saw a trailer, but they had some advertising for the film. It was supposed to be called, I think, The Last Great Treasure Hunt. And that was sometime in the mid 2000s. I'm going to say 2010, 2011. I saw a lot of like where they were going to go with it, and I never will know what happened. I don't know who has the rights to that. Probably Ron. I think he might have paid for it. Him or Shoes, one of the two. And who knows if, I've always kind of put it out there as like, hey, if you want something pulled together of the footage and have it digitized and just put something front to back together for your own personal, for everybody that was involved on it, or something that you can put in the gift shop or something, let us know. We'd be more than happy to work on it with you. No additional filming. We'll work with whatever you got or whatever you want to do. And no one's ever pushed it out. So hopefully after sunsets this fall, maybe that's a discussion goes further, because I think that would be cool to kind of everybody go back and see what those guys had to go through. I think it's a good lesson in all the work they did. There's a few things, and I'd have to clear it with a few people that we could talk about concerning it that will be coming up in the future. So it might be something that I know Ron footed that a lot, but Shoes, I'm sure, put plenty in as well. But yeah, I know a lot of the particulars and the people involved, and it would be cool for everybody to be able to see what happened at that site and what they had to go through, the strict government oversight and regulation. And I think that was it. And they just said, look, we'll see how you did it. And I think Ron did such a wonderful job and towed the line and dotted his I's, crossed his T's, and did everything he was asked. And that blew their minds and pissed them off to the point they said, we'll never let anybody else do it again because we don't want this to happen. I think they just did not want it to happen, period. And they have that kind of right and ability to say so. You got to go through the Forestry Service, if you can get the Secretary of the Interior to tell them, nope, let you do it, you're probably still going to have to fight and claw your way through. So that's that. I heard a story about an old man that had a little shop off Idaho Road in the 90s that sold rocks, but also had an old cavalry saddle and pistols he found in the mountains. Know anything about that? Was that Andy Sinbad? I don't know if Andy was off Idaho. He was off. He had his yard sales. And he always old stuff. And I know Andy was trying to sell old pistols and stuff. I know he was trying to sell that pistol. That could have been Sinbad. 90s, though. Sinbad was dead. I think Andy died in the 80s. So I don't know. You can have the years wrong. There's plenty of guys like it. But that sounds a lot like Andy Sinbad. He had his carport sales or yard sales. And Andy always was finding things in the mountains and trying to sell them. And I believe Andy committed suicide somewhere in the mid 80s. So it could have been Andy. And that kind of makes me, and again, like I said, and I know he was out in that area, but I don't know if it was Andy. Just tuning in. Cheers. Thanks for being boots on the ground and sharing with us. Oh, I always like that. I like being boots on the grounds. I think I need to get boots on the ground with little cameras on their heads. And then I just sit there and talk in their ears and say, okay, left. No, what's that? Look down. That would actually be fun. Really annoying for the people there. Have Run, Feldman, Jackson Felice decided to put their research together to cross off. Have Ron, I don't know. Um, there's a lot of people always want to put the Dutchman to rest and do this. I mean, they're not. No one's ever going to. I don't think so. It depends on your particular. Um, I always try to figure, and there's no dancing around it. It's just I'm very, very analytical, and I'm not sitting there trying to say someone's wrong or someone's right. I will say the problems and particulars I have with something. Um, so I know I'm assuming you're talking about the Silver Chief, which is known as the Pit Mine. I need a thing that goes the Pit Mine. But I mean, how many people were in the mining the Silver Chief in the Pit Mine? It's on topographical maps, by the way. It's marked, and before that thing was mined, the most recent that was work done that was on it that made it like the big thing. There were other people out there looking around at what they were doing during the actual time period. And I know everyone particularly seems to be up front, back, and everywhere in between involved in that. And I don't reserve a right to judgment. I just think it was the Silver Chief mine, and it was a silver mine. And I don't know if there was gold or how much gold was taken out of it. And I don't think it was the Dutchman in any shape or form. It just doesn't fall into it. And it's just kind of select your clues, and selective reasoning will always do that. And Ron and I actually had a little discussion about that, kind of around it, of saying, everybody is entitled to their own opinion, and you have to respect it. I like Ron. I respect Ron. I like Jesse. I respect Jesse. And Josh is okay. So, just kidding, Josh. But no. So if people want to say, "Oh, this is what it was. This is what it is," that's fine. There will be another one. So, and there'll be another person that finds it. There's going to be at least 10 people that find it this fall. So, I'm never worried about people finding it. I'm not worried about someone saying anything, doing anything. I did talk last time, obviously Jack Carlson's the last 20, 30 years or so, probably sold the most books on the Lost Dutch Mine. That's the hiking guide. There's no million bestsellers. There's no 100,000s bestsellers. There's nothing making the New York Times list. It's in a very niche area. So it's kind of like once you get here and there and a little bit about it, all the books sold, let's just put it this way, all the books sold in the last 20, 25 years concerning the Lost Dutchman don't even come anywhere close, even remotely, even half of what the first debut episode of Legends drew as an audience. So, and that drew about 1.5 million. And I would be safe to say then I don't even know if total volume of all Dutch hunting books sold in the last 25 years is even topped maybe 150,000, maybe even 100,000. So it's, it's such a select audience. Nothing's ever picked up the public's interest quite like Killer Mountains. I don't think anything's picked up the public interest since Simsili or Barry Storm. Thunder God's Gold did very, very well. And it's odd because Trail of the Dutchman's the much better book, but Thunder God's Gold, the one that sold the most. Killer Mountains did a great job. I know there's a couple others that did pretty well. But Jack Carlson's hiking guide pretty much probably owns the day. And I think Jack told me it was about 30 to 40,000 copies have been sold of all editions and volumes of the hiking guides. So when you take that into account, he's probably the big dog on the block. He doesn't make much anything off of it. It pretty much, I think he says it's lucky if it's a break even thing, which Bob Shue says if you break even on a gold mine, you're doing pretty good. What became of Ward's Superstition Bambi? I think Bambi's dead because there's Bambi, there's Bebe, there's a bunch of Bob Ward's girls. I don't exactly know. That was a Rick Gwynn question. Even Sal would be hard to keep track of them, but I don't think any of the ladies are with us still because Bob died, 90, 91? But they were all a bit younger. But I know Rick Gwynn was in touch with most everyone, and Bob's Children and people like that. So that would have been a Rick Gwynn question. And once we lost Rick, we kind of lost that tie to everybody. Um, most of the Bob Ward guys, I only know two or three that are around still. There's very few of them around at all. Crazy Jake's Cruise and a bunch of those guys are, but yeah, a lot of the Ward guys are gone, long gone. Um, so Sal's still around, what Sal knows and so forth. But Sal's not a socialite. I mean, Sal's just kind of, he's here, he's there, and that's about as good as it is. All right, so rest in peace, Andy. Andy was a good dude, man. I think everybody that knew Andy Sinbad liked him, and that wasn't even his name. We'll have to do a clean Chasing Legends on Andy's life because it's very interesting. I think he was born in Germany, came to America. They went back to Germany because of the war or something. Then he was in a prison camp. He was held in a prison camp, not a POW, a prison camp till the end of the war. Andy Sinbad was not his name. His legal name was something different. And then he came back to the United States after World War I, I think. I think it was after World War I. And then he got back involved. But he'd been out here in Arizona, and I think something happened, and he ended up going back to Germany, and life didn't go well at all. And he had a very, very interesting life. Be a very cool one to kind of do something on, put it together. Even after the Jesuits thing that was found in the one cave kind of shakes your belief in the Seed for the Lost Dutchman. Well, no, the Lost Dutchman is very real and true. There's no doubt about that. The ore and the gold that's been found in the mountains, there's gold in the mountains. Don't let anybody ever tell you there's no gold in those mountains. It's very difficult to get out. It's difficult to deal in those situations, but there is gold. They're old mines. I've always told Trevor it would be cool to take a trip and go to a lot of these very old rat hole Mexican mines and stuff, because these older Mexican mines are very different. The problem is they're collapsing, and so few of them are stable in any shape or form. The older the mine, the more difficult it is. They did not have mines you walk into and they're shored up and stuff. They're just like little rat holes in the ground, and most of those collapse. And when you get down in one, you can only go so far. A lot of stuff is just gone. It just doesn't exist anymore in any shape or form out there. So that is, there's nothing that shakes my faith in a lot of it. Now, when it gets to the kind of the out there, kind of out the realms of possibility, I mean, I'm still not convinced, no matter what anyone says, because of how much stuff I've seen done in the mountains that can't be. I'm not a forensic geologist, so I can't prove anything. But the stuff I see, it always bothers me of what's real and what's not real as far as the Jesuits. I don't know if the Jesuits pushed any further than beyond the Gila River. I think you get to kind of Casa Grande, and then by that point, everything was kind of, at that time period, was kind of a wasteland because the Hohokam and Salado were long gone. The Apaches were just raiding people and running around. They weren't like the kings of, don't think of them as the Knights Templar of the Superstitions or anything like that. They weren't. But I think it was just kind of like, I don't see them having a lot of interest. But I do, at the other side, can agree, if they were following the Salt River and the river systems, if they followed the salt, they would come up around the Superstitions. And I can see with the gold that has been found out there and so forth, that there could have been interest. I've just never seen anything that made me sit there and say, you know what, I could take this in somewhere and bang, say this is definitely, very, very real. And you got to remember, there's things like when people bring up the cross up in the cave and that stuff in the back cave, is that I never got to go really and deal with that. And then everything got shut down, and that was kind of kind of the property of history and A&E storylines. And so the ability to do this and do what I do a lot of times involves me not walking in their path. I can help share in that path on the edge of it and kind of say, yeah, over here. But I can't, there's things that are kind of like there. And so we had to kind of do things a little different as far as that was concerned. Okay, I know we're going to get into, I see a couple things. Isn't our land the same as BLM? Do we know? What? Throw dirt on our history. Isn't our land the same as the BLM. I don't know what you're quite saying. Bureau of Land Management. There's state trust land out there. There's national forest out there. There's also the wilderness area. So they're all kind of different, have their different rules and and there's private property out there. So you have different things that are run by different organizations. So, and we have very little say on most of that stuff. Has anyone in the last 15 years come out of the woodwork and approached you or the museum or any of the researchers with any potential credible secret LDM info? Yes. I've gotten a lot of good stuff. It's not always necessarily the Lost Dutch Mine. It's about a lot of other different things in the mountains and things they found. Definitely a lot of ruins and stuff like that, because Walt's saying, the inference that there could have been some ruins nearby there. I always hear about a lot of stuff. I try to verify as much of it. One of the problems is you don't sometimes want to share certain information, not necessarily because it's a treasure secret, but because you don't want anything destroyed or anything that's possibly credible that can be tested, because that's happened so many times. But there's been a lot of people that have come up with a lot of really good stuff and shared with me. I always try to keep an open mind to it. The moment they want me to start writing checks to them, I start doubting things. But no, there's been a lot of people that I consider credible and I've had to deal with and I've dealt with and I will deal with in the future in the mountains. And I'm always open to it. If they think my expertise can help them in some way in the mountains, that they got something that I can hang my hat on and say, you know what, you got something there. Maybe let me see what we can do about it and so forth. I will advise and kind of my own way involvement. So there are people definitely. Wayne, have you ever been contacted by a network to inspect areas or provide your input? Yes, all the time. I just did something for History Channel with World's Greatest Mysteries. So I always get contacted. I've done a lot of different things for Discovery, Travel Channel, Science Channel, Nat Geo, and History Channel, which is part of A&E. I've done things locally here in the local news. I'm always contacted and stuff. It depends. It's not like I think I'm that big of a deal, but I always kind of want to know what's their point and deal with it. Because sometimes they do stuff and I'm like, okay, who else are we dealing with? Who are you talking to? Oh, we're going to deal with mainly the people at the Lost Dutchman Park because they're experts, but we'd like to get some of your feedback too. And I'll just go, I'll pass. Because I don't know why you think those guys know anything. Sorry, they're nice enough people. They take your money, they go in, they tell you blah, 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 blah. Yeah, they don't know jack. But again, you want to be nice and so forth. But I always try to see where they're serious about history, where they're serious about what is at the angle they're looking at. I don't want to go and work on something or work on a project that I think is a negative aspect. And there's times that kind of happens. So I've been very happy because I've gotten to work not only the series I got to work with History Channel, but Beyond Oak Island, World's Greatest Histories, History's Greatest Mysteries, and different projects. History's always treated me very well. And I always just feel kind of indebted that they've been really cool to me to do stuff for them. And they've been very cool in allowing me to go work on projects for Travel and Discovery and Science Channel and other groups. So there's never been a problem with that, which I always think is really cool because for me, it's more about trying to spread the message and talk about it and educate over just not any particular thing. So yes, if they did ask me and say, please don't do that stuff, I probably would say, okay, I won't, but they've never hindered me in any way. They've just always said, if we have something we get first rights to you and so forth. And that was the last thing I worked on. So sometime this fall, I thought they told me it was for season 4, which is currently running on Monday nights. And, I know it won't be this Monday, but as soon as I have that, we'll probably do a Chasing Legends episode, what it's like to kind of work with them, the whole routine of what goes on in that. So that was that. Geez, I fall behind. You wonder if anyone's family has a hold of stolen roof maps or Julia's paperwork. I'm pretty sure is burned. Or actually helpful facts. Well, Bark and Ely, well, I think it would be the Spangler family. I think they still have a ton of information they've never wanted to release. I think people always think it's valuable, but I don't know if anybody's got $1 million to throw. Richard Peck ruined a lot for us because he started giving people a lot of money for stuff. But Julia's stuff was burned. Herman talked about it. He said it was Godfrey, but Reinhardt also burned a bunch of stuff before he committed suicide, so that stuff's gone. So as far as Adolf Roos stuff, I think, Irwin talked, and Earl's never very prominent in the discussions, but I think the family got rid of most everything. And Paul Shimmick and the guys involved with that was, God, I don't want to say who was and what. Gary Cundiff and Larry Hanna, Paul Shimmick. There was a bunch of people involved in dealing with the Ruth family that got a lot of letters and a lot of stuff that was still around. But you have to understand, generationally, after a while, who's keeping the stuff? It's probably just sitting somewhere, and eventually someone just throws it in the trash, doesn't know what it is. And so Ruth's map collection, I know there are letters where Irwin talks about his dad Adolf was already given stuff away before the tragedy. So you don't know what they knew or what things were. You got to remember, he collected maps and stuff like that. So it's very easily something really important could have been given away or thrown out. And Irwin even says in several times in different letters, it's very prominent to me is when Irwin says, I don't know if I could tell you which map was which, even which ones were the ones that Gonzalez gave me. And that's a very strong point because he says he never paid attention to it. He never really was into them. He just kind of saw them. His dad showed stuff to him. He wasn't really interested in that stuff. So therefore, so it's surprising even the Borrego stuff and all that we've never seen. Think about it. They always tout the ones about Glenn McGill, but we don't see all this other stuff. So it's hard to say what were the Ruth maps, and the fish map could have been one of them. We don't know. I hope that kind of touches that. If anyone's family, okay, chances are the LDM was found by friends or relatives. They were smart, and that's always a possibility. Thieves would target you. Somebody retracted what they were going to say. Thieves, then we got that in. Most land is native before pioneer days. Well, the natives didn't put up boundaries. They didn't put up fences, and they raided each other and constantly tried to commit genocide on all kinds of stuff and murder one another. So it's kind of that thing of acting like everything was all good and peaceful, and there was plagues and all kinds of things going on. But yes, we're not going to go down kind of some of that stuff. There were peaceful Indian tribes that were very peaceful after a period of time that settled in certain areas and that were very, very wronged. There were also groups that long before any white people ever showed up that were terrorizing, torturing, and doing very bad things to people before that. So let's not act like suddenly, the Spanish and then the Mexicans were doing a lot of pretty atrocious things as well. And we can say those are white men as well, but I'm just kind of saying is that the Apaches weren't treating all the other tribes or other groups really fondly at the time. And that's just history and what it is. All right. Has anyone located the Cave of Mexican Sandals on Bluff Springs Mountain? Been up there, been by it. There are people that like to move it somewhere else. There are these guys that want to put it up by squad stuff. And I pretty much by description and a lot of things. And I think that was just guys that liked Peter Mesa. And then they said, oh, no, it's really over here. You got to understand it's secret, blah, 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 blah. I found kind of basically where they'd been and where they were. And kind of a lot of it made sense. I don't know. It's what someone wants to believe. There's nothing existing in some of those things. There are still some, never found any sandals and stuff, but you can find some old stuff. I found a spot where there was some old rope stored, but you couldn't do it. Was just it was really old, dried out grass. And if you started to touch it or anything, it was just falling apart. It wasn't turning to dust like in a movie, but it was literally just crumbling and falling apart. So I just left it. And it was just from time and age and stuff. So, and I believe there was a lot that happened in that area. Does that have anything to do with the LDM? It's hard to say, but I do know the area where I found a number of things and that kind of associated with it. And I believe, and yeah, the location of that place is, I think, known to a number of people. Okay, I appreciate the history knowledge. Thank you. Have a great night. Thank you. You too. Guess the days of finding an exposed corpse crappie or long gun. I still can find them occasionally. Is it better to search in the spring? I would say during the winter. It's best just to look in the winter. What happened to the money that the Dutchman got from selling his gold? Well, he could have sent some to his sister. I don't think he really sold that much, and he didn't hoard it that much. I think everybody's under the impression that Waltz, he didn't need much. I mean, there wasn't anything in Phoenix. The people lived in adobe houses. There was no electric bill. There's certainly, I mean, he was elderly. He had a sister he could have sent money to. Waltz didn't need much. So you got to understand. And he probably I know people who are elderly that work very hard and are very shrewd about their money, but are actually well off and have no reason not to enjoy life, but they still do certain things. Like, they will try to shortcut and save money no matter, because that's how they were raised, how they've lived their life. I think Waltz was a little bit like that. And part of the problem is, what are we going to do with the money in Phoenix? He hung around a soda fountain. That was probably a big luxury for him. But there just wasn't a lot, And why do you need new clothes if, who are you trying to impress if the old clothes are just fine? I don't think Waltz had and sensed a need for a lot of things. He was probably doing all right on that. So let's see. Okay, so I rode through the desert on a horse with no name. In the desert, you can't remember your name. Okay, I love this song. Okay, great. In the Dutchman's history, is the Dutchman history treasure trove or something we kick out of the dirt? Thanks, Wayne. Dutchman history. There's a lot of Dutchman history. Jacob Waltz was a real person. There was really ore. There's a lot of reality to it. There was a reality to Mexican mining and possible Spanish mining and a lot of things that happened in there. There's a lot of very, very, very real things and a lot of things that go way back. So I can say that. So a lot of the history, Frank and I will talk, and I'll agree with Frank that, 85% of the stuff is BS anymore. But that's, and it's one of the problems of, like, when I went to work recently with History Channel and they had 4 or 5 pages of stuff. And they basically, and I'll present this again when I do, we do an episode about that experience. But they basically gave me something, and it was what they pulled through the internet and stuff like that. And it was probably 95% wrong. Names, occupation, just absolutely, just incredibly. And it wasn't inept on their part. It's just what was available in the internet in general and Googling and trying to find that stuff. And they allowed me to rewrite and put it back in order, because to me, that was more important, is trying to get the history correct in it and the names and things like that. So there's always that problem. So there's good Dutchman history. It's not. That's why we did the website. I wouldn't want to pay and spend the money. So we have no sponsors. We don't ask you guys to pay to be part of it. We just put it there, and we try to put more and more stuff into it. And the purpose of that was making things available. So when people want to go look, when they find the website, they will actually find information and material that they can't find anywhere else. That's good firsthand information and material. And then we have the videos that kind of explain some of the problems or differences and unusual aspects of those. So I've kind of thought that, and it wasn't, we weren't trying to make money. We were just trying to preserve history and straighten history out a little bit. Kind of happy the map was burned, kept the sanity. Yeah, it was Waltz's, I think it was Waltz's citizenship papers, map, anything. It was just a bunch of stuff from Julia's handbag and stuff. It's nice sometimes just go and wander. Yeah, that's what I do. I just like to wander. There's plenty of times I've wanted to do a trip and then just, there's no reason to do anything in particular and just explore it. Sometimes those are the best days because I find stuff. Randy and I had a couple really great trips where we started out and weather or whatever else happened got in the way, and we ended up having a great trip, catching up and finding some unusual and great things in the mountains, just because we just kind of maneuvered and just went, okay, what do you want to do? Oh, let's just go this way. Let's just go that way. So that happens a lot. Defending resources is survival. Okay, go survive in the mountains there for months. Yeah, it would be a lot more difficult now because of the water. And even the guys that lived out there would come in during the summer because the water holes, a lot of springs would start to dry up and they would come and live in town. And sometimes just to make some money to resupply themselves in the mountains. You could live out there and, people can survive. There's still people that live very, very minimally out in the desert by old mines and stuff and are thinking that something's going to come there. There's a few people I've run into in the middle of nowhere living bare bones existence and doing quite well. I met a gentleman one time in town and his house, and it was kind of a little odd spot where you turn a corner and a little dirt road, and it was in the middle of town, but it was kind of like isolated in the middle of town. Very, very poor. He lived off the rainwater catch barrels at his place. He had electricity run in, so he had electricity, but the place was very, very poor shape. But I was completely amazed at his catch system, his drainage system, and how he set it up to filter everything and do everything. So it was a very, very cool thing, but at the same time, very, very sad. He was on his own and struggling and all that. But I became, I'm not close friends, but friends with him. And someday we'll talk about that story, and I'll show all the photographs and stuff of what this guy had collected over time, which was amazing. And that was just a by chance happening meeting with a guy. And then we got to know each other, and he was very appreciative that I loved history, and he took me around and showed me a lot of stuff. And I learned a lot, and it changed the way I approached a lot of things because he was very, very smart and he is very knowledgeable. And then he had the physical stuff to back it up where I was like, oh crap, I've seen that in a book. That is the real thing. So yeah, we'll have to do that on him sometime. He has passed away and the place is gone. Everything's gone, but I do have a record of it all. Okay. So there we go. How about the names of the two lost souls? That was written in the mason jar and they say they lost it. Something big has, that's a weird one because they say they had it and then it was lost to time. And I know a lot of people have talked about it. I find that odd because you think having the new two names, somebody would have wrote it down or kept track of it a little. But they say they kept the jar and the names in the jar and then it just got lost. And I find that odd because there's stuff that gets preserved. But again, I also understand there's someone in the family, someone dies, there's only one kid, any one person going, and then boom, someone just pitches it. And they're like, crap, do you know what you threw out? Or they don't, nobody ever has one. And then somebody comes along and says, hey, you remember? No, I don't even remember that. So yeah, I think those are completely lost to time because there's been enough stuff. I didn't think you feel that way about us Indians. Goodbye, Wayne. What? Okay, and I don't know what. Good luck. It's not about Indians. That wasn't Indians, and do Indians call themselves Injuns? Anyways, no, it was just practical matter and there. If whether you refer to yourself as Indian or indigenous or whatnot, that to think the Apaches were a peaceful, loving group is kind of a little particularly odd. And the Mexicans were very vicious on the Apaches and everybody else for that matter. And actually, the scalp guys that pulled the scalps, regardless of who they were, also scalped anybody that had black hair because they could get paid for it. So they didn't care women, children, and they didn't care race, creed, or color. And yes, so that's pretty, you have to remember is like, I think one of the things that people forget about and people always like to keep separate and is that when it comes to a lot of indigenous groups is that there wasn't like, you have to separate like the way we had problems between the Irish and we had problems with Italians in neighborhoods and those kind of war feuds and stuff. Everyone thinks, oh, these are indigenous people and they all know each other and it's much different today than it would have been 150, 200 years ago. And it was very, very much warring factions and a lot of issues and how everybody were. The Navajos settled down probably in the 1600s. They started to settle down more and started herding and farming a bit. The Hopis did as well, but the Apaches never did. They stayed. The Comanches, different groups stayed kind of still a bit more raiding and that sort of thing. And that's just history and what it is. So if someone's offended by the actual just reality of things, and okay, that's fine. I don't really care. It doesn't matter. I mean, there's none of those people are around anymore. It's kind of one of those things. So I'm not going to politicize it. So I hope you have a good life and all that, but no insults, because some of my best friends are indigenous and native. So there you go. Whatever. And I don't think they would have a problem either. some of the jokes. Waltz bought this little homestead, paid for Julia's fountain, and gold. Yeah, and yeah, he tried to help her out. And there are some people that doubt all that and say she could have pulled it off on her own. I know Thomas Glover felt that way a bit, but yes, he was kind of like trying to help her out. His little homestead, he didn't buy it. His homestead was just, you went in and, it didn't cost much. And that was very early on. They say he lived in basically a wiki up style shelter at first. And then what Waltz did was he continued to build, and eventually he built an adobe. It had shutters, locking shutters and doors. He had several outbuildings, and he did quite well. But again, it was, they said there was particular things Waltz different, but then the Grahovas also said, I think they said his house was 2 rooms. It wasn't a big house, but they said he had 2 rooms, the house, but it was very threadbare. There was a table with a chair. There was a bed. It was very simple. But then, of course, they said it screamed poverty. But what did he need? So, yeah, there's plenty of people just don't need anything. Think about all the stuff you could just completely cut out of your life, and you could exist if you just wanted to just live peacefully and not have to worry about dealing with stuff and all. Be very cool. Waltz lived a very threadbare life. He'd spent most of the road. I don't think he was an art collector or anything like that. There was no television or radio. So there it is. Okay. There we go. Ready to go tubing. No, I haven't gone tubing since probably the 80s. I don't think I went in the 90s, certainly. I heard there is a site to see in these hills that have never been documented. Okay, I don't know. Oh, in the hills by the tubing and stuff. I don't know. Okay, I don't know. I have to take your word for it. I don't know. We used to, when we would go tubing or go do stuff or go out places, we'd keep track of where places were, things we saw that might be neat, and then go back later and check them out. So there was a lot of that. So I don't know if that's the kind of what you're referring to. The different Indian groups were cannibalizing each other. Well, it's just what white people do and all people do. It's people. So I'm glad you get it. It's like everybody, it's never stick race with something, because it's just people do bad things to other people, and there is no group that's above and beyond doing that to another group, it appears, unfortunately. And yeah, I'm sorry someone took offense at it, but again, I don't know, sometimes maybe people just don't want to deal with it. I always figure you just deal with what is. I hate the people that always, I'm not going to go there, because if I go into that thing, then somebody else is going to get mad. Okay. So thanks, Wayne. Getting near 5 o'clock. Yeah, it's near silver bullet time. Yeah, it is getting there. Yeah. So yep, Trevor's off at he's at the happy hour, so he's not here. What area is the superstition you most drawn to, and why? There's areas I really, really like, and I think it's kind of at this point in my life, the reason I kind of like go to them is it's more kind of the memories, and kind of like, well, because obviously I've been there, because that would be why I'm drawn to them. But Blacktop Mesa, I always love standing up on Blacktop Mesa. I love going down through Caballo's Camp because of all the journeys and times. I don't get the same thought of like Fremont Saddle, Weaver's Needle, that stuff, or down in Needle Valley, Pinion Camp. That never, it's not a bad deal, but I love Bluff Springs Mountain, on north or south end, Midway, anywhere around Bluff Springs Mountain, Whiskey Springs, and going into the LaBarge Box. There's just certain areas you go to and just have a really great feel. And I like to just sit there and get absorbed in just the quiet and everything. Bluff Springs Mountain is just, yeah, that was probably one from the beginning all the way through. So it's probably, and it's usually particular certain areas in those areas. And it's because of the relationships and people I've been there with and stuff. But yeah, I could say definitely some of those areas big time. Coffee Flat a bit, because on the trips I made to Coffee Flat, and I made some really cool trips by myself and a lot of things that happened up in there. But it's kind of like, unfortunately, sometimes it's the trips you've had and not necessarily successful, but how good of a time and the people you were with. And it's very memorable. And when you go back each time, it has a good feeling, solid feeling to it. But yeah, I definitely would say if my favorite place going up into was always Bluff Spring, and in Bluff Springs Canyon and stuff, and just wandering around on whether the east side, the west side, north side, the south side. And like I said, Blacktop Mesa is just a beautiful view looking out. And you see Peters Mesa and you see Bluff Springs Mountain. You can see all across. But Bluff Springs has that too, where you can stand there in a number of places and look, turn your head and look around. You can see so much of the mountains around you. So, in the wind hitting you and all that. So it's very, very cool. And Frank's bugged me and said well, not, he doesn't want to go, but we need to go out and film a lot of that, kind of like talking about it and stuff like that, and let people kind of see those kind of aspects of the panoramic views and stuff. Okay, it's 5 o'clock. What are your favorites? Talking to El Dorado here. Okay, cool. There was a guy who was named Let's Go, Let's Go, Let's Go, Let's Go. El Dorado. It's a good John Wayne film. Get back in the field, find the gold. Yes. Let's go talk to Bob. Let's go talk to Bob. Well, I'll tell you. Okay. Anyways, I'm not in the mood to do a good shoes today, but yeah, let's go talk to Bob. Well, I'll tell you, I don't trust this guy over here. Who's he? Blue Explorer. If you want to know all about that, give me a shout. Blue Explorer. I don't know. I've done a good amount of research there. Okay. I don't know what the Blue Explorer. Oh, here you're talking to person that's Blue Explorer. Never mind. I'm sorry. Will Trevor comment with his film experience if my Superstition orbs are just lens flare? Yeah, I'll ask him because he's not here right now. I'll bring that up. I'll remind myself. In fact, I'll note it down because I'll forget. But I got the weekend to talk to him about it and all that. So I will make sure I put this down for him and cover that. It's a weird pen. I don't know where this pen came from. Okay. I will have Trevor check that and give feedback, and then try to make sure I put a sticky note or something somewhere here to remind myself to bring it up the next time we do live, which he doesn't seem to be doing any of the archive videos anymore. So I seem to be doing live. Hey, Jax, what's up, buddy? Why don't you push that blind and bring the light in again? Thank you, bud. Arizona Gold. Read the info on the link. I have the claim on record with the BLM. Over 20 mines were found trying to get this armchair podcaster guy to go out on an adventure. Who are you talking about? Me? I'm not an armchair podcaster guy, man. Shit, dude. I even brought my rigging gear. I want to take Wayne down into the spiral. Oh, is that you, Derek? Is that you, Derek? I don't know if that's Derek or which person that is. So, just kidding. Yeah, because anyways, I'll take you down. You want to go down the spiral? I'll send you down, man. Yeah. What's funny is people say things and stuff. And Frank gets so mad because he knows how crazy I am and the stuff I'll do. But it's so funny when you get people into the certain position where, no, it's James. Okay. I never know who anybody is because everybody has these different things. When you get to the spiral, but not just the spiral, other real hairy places. And it's just like people get to that point where they go, what do you mean? And it's like, hey, I'm not going to waste a light stick. Just go down when if you hit the bottom and there's snakes, just tell us to pull you back up. Just hang on tight. And I've been on the back end of that rope on that thing and all. There's nothing like going down a tunnel and there's a snake coming and there's no room to go anywhere. You just got to sit still and hope the snake just decides it's okay, because the snake's going to sense your heat and stuff and he's going to stop. You got to just sit there and breathe easy until that snake goes away. that crap happens, man. Let's see here. Uncle Bob to tie. I even brought my ring. Okay, just kidding. No miner will find the gold. You can see the needle for that. I don't think Waltz ever said anything about Weaver's needle. I do not believe that for a second. I was sub-level caving for years. I got 50% today's economy. I don't know what that even means, but okay. I don't know if that means you're flying on economy or what, anything like that. Anyways, yeah, it's always hard to follow this stuff because sometimes you guys are talking between each other and I'm trying to jump and I'm trying to jump in and out and then look at what people are pushing and then seeing what people are talking about and then suddenly realize they weren't even talking to me. And I'm involved in a conversation that I have no clue of that I'm on the outside of. But it is definitely is past 5 o'clock somewhere, and it is that time. I don't smell food yet, but I'm still going to get going. I want to thank everybody for joining us, and I hope I answered all the questions as best I could. It's always just kind of, I wanted to set up more of a lav mic to get a better mic sound because I know it's very odd. In here, ears, you do not hear the reflective sound that's actually, I catch on this with the microphone. And I told Trevor I wanted to go with a different mic setup to have a better tone. It's not so much the mic, it's the room. I'm going to baffle the room because I want to cut down on some of that reflectivity. It wasn't a problem for many years, and a lot of stuff I have in here has helped. But one of the mistakes I did make was putting stringed instruments on the walls. So when I do live mic and do things, there is a ringing in here. I don't hear it on the mic or the playback as much, but I can hear it in here in my own ears, which is odd because on the playback, I'll hear how the room is reflecting, but I don't hear the instruments, but I hear when I'm speaking at times. Definitely, I can hear the ringing of the acoustic instruments because I have a resonator and an acoustic right above me here, and then there's other things around. But yeah, there is a kind of a resonance in the room because of that, the vibrations and so forth, because everything's always vibrating, right? So whether we see it or feel it or whatnot, when you're in a room with this, with I don't even know what to count, at least 15 stringed instruments sitting out around you, there is a constant slight buzz vibration in all things. It's very peaceful because I keep everything tuned, and everything is tuned in E. I don't have anything in drop tuning or anything. I keep everything in E because I realize that if I come in the room and there's something out, it kind of throws you off. It's a weird thing. You'll kind of feel like something's not quite right. And I know when something's not right in here because I'm kind of like, and then I go and start checking and I'll find a couple things are a little out of tune and then I tune it up and the room's very peaceful again. Has nothing to do with other than just everything in tune vibrating together. So, and that is not a hippie thing or anything like that. It's just a natural occurrence thing. And if you have a lot of acoustic instruments, which most people don't, but if you had 5 acoustic guitars and you had a small little closet room or something you went into and tune one guitar off or tune it in a different tuning and then sat in there and spent time, you would feel the vibrations a bit different. And it's very odd. And it definitely, because of my ears or whatever, I hear it and kind of like focus too much on it. So there you go. Thank you, Wayne. Jax is hungry. Jax is always hungry. Enjoy your weekend picking that damn guitar. I always do, always will. Sound like Brian Wilson now. No, I don't. Well, I mean, maybe I sound like Brian Wilson. Am I only coming through on one ear? It's a bad joke. I love Brian Wilson, man, as a composer and a producer, man. That guy was so brilliant and continues to be so, but I'm sad what happened with him mental health wise. No, good vibrations, but I get it. So what happens when the state figures out the mines they're talking about in the record art found over by the Dutchman State Park? There is gold under Lost Dutchman State Park. There's gold everywhere. Consolidated Copper has a lot of claims on a lot of stuff. They know where there's stuff at. And believe you, once all of us are gone, there will be a time and place when they will tear everything up. So don't. I took the wrong Dutchman trail. But no, there's always time and place, and there's always going to be encroachment and things happen. Look at Lost Dutchman State Park. And I've been told by geologists that there is gold buried ore somewhere in there. It is an area that's very likely. And they'll say, oh, no, we tested it and there's nothing there. And, that's BS. So they're never, but, the state still has it. The county still has it. And they can always push one another out of there and whatever they want to do. But no, this Lost Dutchman State Park, there is a ledge under through there and so forth. And Tom Collenborn was very involved in that. And there's a number of other people who are very aware of it, even to this day. And I'm kind of slightly aware of where it's kind of at. But yeah, I don't think they're going to let us go in there, pitch a tent, and start digging in the tent anytime soon. Would be cool. But yeah, they know where there's gold. They know that there's gold, but they also like to propagate the idea that there is no gold, which is completely ridiculous. But the people that work at Lost Dutchman State Park probably have no knowledge of some of the things that are. It just is what it is. And you can go tell them and they'll be like, that's absolutely crazy. They're nutcases for saying that. And there's a geological report, and some of the washes down there produce some really nice gold that comes out of there with storms and stuff. So, well, the gold's pulling out of somewhere occasionally through there. So that's all we can tell you. But yeah, there's that. Maybe occasionally there is a guy that works there. Maybe that's the reason he gets the job there. He's doing some digging under the ground there and all. Okay, what did the rabbi, the Mormon, and the evangelist say when the Lost Dutchman was found? I don't think they said anything because I don't think they even knew what the Lost Dutchman was. I mean, we're in a different place and time and area. What a rabbi know? What did they say? Who knows? We're about ready to get out of here because I hear things. I just don't smell things. No play for us meek. Okay. My God, that was not a good joke. Sorry. So I've only offended one person today, so I consider that a successful, very successful. So, hey, hurrah to me. Somehow I've managed to minimally successfully offend as few people as possible. And so we'll do what we can and moving on in future and kind of not try to offend. Maybe we'll have a week, we'll do a live chat, and that'll be my thing is I will try to absolutely offend as many people as I possibly can. Usually I offend more than one person and I don't even try. So this is Thomas Glover's first book and can't figure why he believes in the Holmes manuscript. Neither could any of us, but Thomas is a wonderfully nice, super nice guy. And I've sat with Thomas many a times and been like, but, and Thomas I think with Clay and Clay's relationship with Brownie and something, there's just something there. Trust me. And, he sat and Tom Collenborn didn't think much of the whole Holmes thing, but Thomas and Tom got along great and sit around and talk for. So, I don't know. I've never been able to delve that. He has a PhD. He's a very, very smart man. But I've seen that happen where you're just kind of like, I don't quite understand. There's, and I've had really good discussions about it with him, but I never could quite get that thing. There's some guys that you just never can quite figure out is like, what is it that you see in that? I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just seeing there. So, okay, well, I'm going to wrap it up and that's it. The Legend Colorado Adventures, Green River, blah, 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 Recton Port. Okay, that's it. So we're going to wrap it up, get done. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I hope everybody has a great week. Stay safe, stay right. Catch us on Monday for another episode of Chasing Legends. Until then, this is Wayne, Life Legends, signing off. Thank you, and have a great time, and be safe.